You are listening to Faithless Brewing, a Magic the Gathering podcast for the Spike Rogue. Each week we design new decks for tournament play. We put our creations to the test and share our findings on the air. Coming up on the Brew session, Aether Channeler has 3 ways to make an impact every time it comes into play. Does this triple threat wizard have the right skills for Modern and Pioneer? Then on the Flashback, testing results with Leyline binding. That's all coming up on Faithless Brewing. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Faithless Brewing Podcast. I am David Robertson, coming to you live from the Twin Cities, and I'm joined by my man south of the border. He is Mordekaiser. He is Mord to Light on Twitter.com. Mord, what is going on, my friend?
Hey, yo. All good. Surviving country instability as best as I can. Just floating and staying on the edges.
Much like the vice president of your country, staying alive by inches.
Exactly, just hoping it all goes well. So yeah, just here, playing Magic, losing a lot of play points by playing some horrible decks.
Okay.
What about you?
Also staying alive. Yeah, just living the dream. Summer is at an end in Minnesota, so, you know, the days are getting shorter. It's getting a little ominous, but I'm headed to England in a week and a half, so I'm very excited about that. I'll be there for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I'll be wandering the Cotswold area, so won't be brewing. We'll instead be wandering to pubs and, living my Hobbit lifestyle.
Okay. Going from pub to pub, just having the best life.
Yeah, walking like 14, 15 hours or 14, 15 miles a day. It's the Cotswolds are like 108 miles or something.
Okay.
So yeah, you just go from like town to town and check out old castles and stuff.
Just the best tourist life. I was in England a few years ago. Beautiful place.
Yeah. British people, not so much, but you know, they're all right.
British patrons don't hear him. He doesn't speak. He doesn't speak for the podcast. Don't listen to that man.
1776 scoreboard. That's all I need to say.
Someone stop him. He's going off the record.
All right, so we have a big show. Hopefully everybody listened on Friday. We broke down some of the cool new tech, a lot of cool ideas people are taking into the queues, into the challenges even, in both Modern and Pioneer. Today, we are going to talk about our card of the week, and that is Aether Channeler, a card that both Mord and I were super excited to see printed.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk about our experiments with Leyline binding. So before we get to that, a little bit of housekeeping as usual at the top of the show. If you enjoy the show and want to support us, the best way to do that is to go to patreon.com and go to Faithless Brewing. What is it? Faithless Brewing at patreon.com?
Yes, exactly. If you just look for us in Patreon, you're going to find us super easily. Every single thread of support helps us keep going. It works for us. It works for you. Helps you get into the Discord where you will find just beautiful people, amazing brewers, and really, really bad ideas alongside some decent ones. And it will allow you to either nominate or vote for cards for a monthly project as you decide what we're going to spend our play points on.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that out of the way, let us get to our new card. So Aether Channeler, tell me what this card does, Mord.
So we're talking about a 3-mana 2/1 wizard human. When it enters the battlefield, choose one of 3 modes, draw a card, bounce target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or make a 1/1 bird with flying. The fact I remember this card by heart means it's good. That's how it works. If I can say the card by heart is good, if I can't, maybe it's good, it just isn't in your own colors.
Yeah, so this card kind of immediately captured a lot of people's attention because it doesn't do any one thing really well, but the 3 things it does reasonably well. Normally we pay a lot more of an extra cost for this amount of flexibility. So a 3-mana 2/1 that bounces any permanent, that's reasonable. A 3-mana 2-power creature that draws a card, that's reasonable. and a 3-mana 2-power creature that makes a 1/1 flyer is reasonable. Now, obviously, if you want any of those specific modes, you can probably find a little bit more efficient. You can play a 3-mana 3/2 that draws a card. You can play, a 3-mana.
Is there a 3-mana 3/2 that draws a card?
Yeah, the one that also makes 2 energy. There's even more text.
Oh yeah, exactly the same Patreon we have, Aether Refiner.
Yeah. So each you can find a 3-mana 2/2 that makes a better extra token than just a 1/1, right? You can play Old Pyromancer.
Yeah, you can find a lot of ways to make something better than each of the specific mode, but we praise here on ETB is its versatility. Especially with stuff you're bound to blink, it's great to have versatility because it's really weird you want that many tokens or that many bounces or that many cards. It's the versatility in I can bounce something and I can draw a card when there's nothing to bounce.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. So we'll talk about this during our binding section, but this is not a good card to tutor because each individual effect it has is not the best in class, as our CEO likes to say. So it doesn't do any one thing well, and Damon pointed that out as he said, possible weakness of this card is that often when you have these cards, you want them to be really good at one thing as opposed to kind of good at a bunch of different things. But to really make it sing, I think you do need to have that bouncing effect where you do something over and over again, and you don't want too many of any one thing, right? You don't want to. Your opponent might not have that many things you want to bounce. You want to draw a card instead, or make a bunch of bodies to block or to attack planeswalkers or what have you.
Yeah. You have fallen in love with Dan's phrase of best in class. And in this particular scenario, I think it's a pretty accurate appointment. It's really weird for you to want to get this card. Like, out of a toolbox package, right? Why would you let them recall for this when you can get, as we said, Barrel, which is the 2/2 that bounces and then draws a card, when you can get Seasoned Pyromancer, when you can get anything else. The upside of this card is the multiple blinking aspect of it.
Yeah, it's also a human, which somewhat matters. I think the humans deck in Modern does not exist anymore, and the humans deck in Pioneer is very aggressive. And this does not give you enough power, I think, for 3 mana. So I don't think the human text matters that much. The wizard text matters a little bit, as we're going to see in one of my brews. I'm very interested in exploiting that. Dan is always on the lookout, as he says, for wizards that don't require you to have a bunch of spells in your deck. So this is notable for that, right? This gives you value. It is interaction with any permanent, any non-land permanent. And it does not require you to cast spells or have a density of spells, to do anything else. So that's kind of cool.
This might be the first excuse we have to play the card from your age, Riptide Laboratory.
What about Snapcaster Mage?
I said good excuse.
Snapcaster Mage is better than Aether Channeler, is it not?
I'm not muted, everybody. I'm having a deep insight on the conversation with Inner Mord.
Are we saying Aether Channeler is better than Snapcaster Mage? I need a judge's ruling here.
So you don't need multiple cards in your graveyard. You don't need multiple. I don't know. Maybe I think I want. I don't know. Why did you ask me so deep and personal questions that can harm in such a deep level? Now I'm gonna write an essay on this topic.
Maybe we need a poll in our Discord, because I feel like Snapcaster Mage is gonna win with all of the votes except for Moritz, who will not vote yay or nay. He will vote unsure.
He will vote why. But yeah, maybe we can just play both. But the important thing is, Human Wizard, extremely versatile card.
Okay, so let's look at some deck lists. We will start with Pioneer. The first card I'm really interested in playing with this is Naban. So Naban is a 2-mana, 2/1 wizard, and it lets you double come into play triggers from wizards. So we're getting paid off extra on all these wizard come into play triggers, and we've had a bunch of reasonably costed wizards printed. Cards I'm interested in playing with this are Rafine's Informant, which gets to connive twice and possibly gets to become a 4/3 that double loots.
Never even realized he was a wizard. She doesn't seem like a wizard at all.
She doesn't, but I know this because Dan immediately wanted to build a freaking party deck. It's just like, oh, we have a wizard doesn't require spells. I was like, I'm filing this away for like a real deck. The party deck does, of course, is not a deck. Harbinger of Tides, Tidebinder Mage, Reflector Mage, Aether Channeler, Master of Waves is a wizard, and then Thassa Deep Dwelling is a card that blinks every turn, which is one of the things that Morg was saying we want. The other thing to note is I've really been loving Extraction Specialist. And Extraction Specialist is really good if you have 2-drops that you want to survive.
I love it. I love Extraction Specialist in so many decks. Like, whenever you just can use it efficiently, like, if your opponent is forced to deal with your 2-drops, or your 1-drops or whatever, Extraction Specialist is just amazing.
Yeah, and it also really helps you like play catch up the Naban package. So if your opponent plays like turn 1 Llanowar Elf, turn 2 Cure or something, and you go turn 2 Naban, it's like, oh man, I'm way behind. You play Aether Channeler, bounce their Planeswalker and their Elf, like you're just so far ahead all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're playing its removal deck, okay, the deck is interacting, it kills Naban. They have to play off curve or whatever. They stomp Naban. You just bring it back with Extraction Specialist. So now what do? They can't just take Extraction Specialist over and over again, but they don't want to leave Naban in play. So I just love that Naban is great against a bunch of shells. And then to sort of increase the effectiveness of Extraction Specialist, I'm playing Thalia, which has no synergy here. It's a human soldier, but it just is a card that gives you a ton of game against a bunch of the other shells and slows down mono green. And it doesn't affect a single card that you have in your deck. So it's basically just free for you to play. You have Rafine's Informant. If it's not a good card, you just turn it into something else and, make it Rafine's Informant bigger. And if it is good, it's a card that we get to keep around because we have to play Extraction Specialist to bring it back.
Okay. Yeah, when Thalia is huge, it's huge. You have the makings of a party deck in here, right?
I'm sure I do, but it's mostly wizards.
You have rogues. You could have some clerics.
Yeah, well, the rogue is, yeah, I guess. So, yeah, one of the things that's attractive about this is we get to play 21 lands plus 3 Glasspool Mimic.
Yeah.
Glasspool Mimic is just so good with a bunch of these cards, like copying Aether Channeler, copying Extraction Specialist, copying Master of Waves, of course. Thassa Deep Dwelling here is a card we're not that concerned with turning on, although we do have a bunch of blue pips with Harbinger of Tides and Tidebinder Mage. But it's mainly just like blink Master of Waves at the end of turn, blink Aether Channeler at the end of turn.
Yeah.
It's a card type that red-black especially really struggles to deal with. If we're just blinking Aether Channeler every turn, that's something they actually really struggle to beat. And if we're blinking Aether Channeler every turn with the Naban in play, then the game is over. As I've said, against red-black, if you complete 3 2-for-1s, you can just extend the right
You
hand.
win.
So you have to get there, but this is a way to help you get there.
So I'm going to ask something sort of... Maybe this is my brain going on... When I say going off, it's not like going off, like popping off. It's like shutting down, actually. We have 6 cards that care about Mono Blue Devotion here. Do we have any possibility of a shell in a Mono Blue Devotion deck with Nixos?
You could. I don't think you want to play mono blue with any splash at all, though, because the mana is so bad.
Yeah, but straight up Mono Blue.
Yeah, so I think you could play that. I would maybe actually look... In Mono Blue Devotion, I would look to play the other 2-mana blue wizard that, like, lets your opponent draw an extra card on their turn or whatever, and their spells cost more.
If they pay 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of stuff, like wizards in like with double pips and triple pips, and go deep into Nixos, Master of Waves, Thassa and such. I don't know, now that we have so many playable ones, like the full playset of Aether Channeler, the full playset of Glasspool Mimic, the full playset of Naban, of Harbinger of Tides. I don't know. Maybe it's Insanity. It might be Insanity. Likely is Insanity.
I think there's certainly a shell there. The thing for me, though, is I really want Naban to be in play. And so if I want Naban to be in play, then I think I need the...
Extraction Specialist.
The Extraction Specialist, exactly. And then once I'm in white, it's like...
Thalia.
Yeah, then Thalia is just so good, right? She's so good against blue-red. She's okay against a few other shells. And then I do think that Rafine's Informant is just legitimately good, especially with Naban. So...
Oh, yeah.
And then Reflector Mage, right? Like, we just have we're probably going to be a little behind on, like, turn 3, and then we're going to, have an insane, turn 3, turn 4 kind of sequence is what I'm thinking happens a lot of times.
Yeah, I agree. Fun fact about Extraction Specialist is it works super well with the Enlist creatures.
Oh, yeah.
So I saw a humans list that was playing... The mono white list that always plays, the full playset of a Specialist was playing 3 or 4 of the new one with Enlist. The 2/2 that you can discard a card to make it indestructible, and it just works super well as a synergy.
Yeah, I mean, Enlist is a limited mechanic, but that interaction might be enough to make me at least consider that card.
I mean, enlist is a draft mechanic, but the 2-mana 2/2 that you can protect and Christ 2 once you enlist is actually quite a decent card.
Yes, especially if you have a reasonable way to make it enlist, which is Extraction Specialist specifically.
Exactly, like it's a super synergy. Or like you never want to attack with Talia a lot of the time, and you can just go with that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it's doing.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I'd not thought about that at all. Okay, so that's one shell. The second shell I want to talk about. So I 4-1 with a pretty wild list, I have to say. It was basically, my idea was, if you have an Esika's Chariot in play and a Teleportation Circle, you can't lose to red-black. You don't have to play another spell. They can't beat it. So once you've like out mid-range the other mid-range deck, now all you have to do is find a way to like beat control and beat combo. So my thought process was like, I'm going to play a bunch of 2-mana ramp creatures. I'm going to try to play Esika's Chariot or Teleportation Circle on 3, and then eventually I'll draw the other part, and then the game's over against other mid-range decks, and I just have to find a way to not lose to, Spirits and Phoenix and
such.
So I tried various versions of this. Multiple 1/3 drops. Weirdly, the thing I determined I needed was so my ramp spells were Ingenious Smith is my 2-drop, Renowned Weaponsmith, and then Innkeeper. So Innkeeper was weirdly insane in this deck. Like, bouncing these creatures every turn just gives you an insane amount of life, and they don't like want to kill it. Doesn't seem like worth killing, and you never actually target it with your bounce from your circle.
Okay.
The Weaponsmith was, my thought was, I had all these 5-drop artifacts I want to play, and then if they kill it, then I've got the Extraction Specialist thing happening. What I found was I needed blue earlier because I was playing Weaponsmith. I finally got this deck to 4-1 because I added 4 Prophetic Prisms, which are actually awesome with Teleportation Circle. You just never flood. And it also weirdly lets you take the mana from Weaponsmith and filter it into normal mana. So it like turns Weaponsmith into sort of like a 2-mana Sylvan Caryatid.
Okay, nice synergy.
For non-artifacts, which came up a lot. Because the problem was Weaponsmith died, and then so I was having to play Extraction Specialist, but Extraction Specialist doesn't do that much against decks that don't interact. So like Extraction Specialist sucks against like mono blue spirits or whatever. So I was thinking like what I want to do is cut a bunch more of the blue and get rid of the Weaponsmith, and then just try to really focus on ramping to 4 and not play quite as many 5-drops and not worry about playing the artifacts as much. And so I also really like the idea of having Aether Channeler. So I guess my proposed update has the 4 Portable Hole, and then 4 Sylvan Caryatid, 4 Prospective Innkeeper, 4 Prosperous Innkeeper, 4 Ingenious Smith, still the 4 Prophetic Prism, Unlicensed Earth Courier's Briefcase, 1 Glass Casket, and then 2 Aether Channeler, only 1 Extraction Specialist because we have very few 2-drops who care about living, 1 Aether Sphere Harvester is just like a value card we can hit with our Ingenious Smith, then the 4 Chariot, 3 Teleportation Circle, and then a couple Verdurous Gearhulk and a Sky Sovereign console flagship. So we have the blink thing that you were saying makes Aether Channeler valuable. Aether Channeler also gives us random bodies, like putting a 1/1 flyer in play when you can play a Verdurous Gearhulk and just make a 5/5 flyer out of nowhere actually matters a lot. Like I just did not have good bodies to put the Verdurous Gearhulk on. Also making the 1/1 is a lot more relevant in a deck with Aether Sphere Harvester. Just a way to crew it very easily. Putting bodies into play also matters with Prosperous Innkeeper. So I think Channeler is just going to be really good here. It's a way to get rid of Planeswalkers. That was a problem I was having. Yeah, I'm just super excited. So I tweaked the other list, like I said, a bunch. I had gone through a bunch of bad leagues. I finally 4-1. The deck felt really good. It felt like there were some improvements that could be made. Channeler specifically was interesting. And basically pushing all the blue into the later turns. Because we're already playing for Prophetic Prism, for Caryatid, for Innkeeper. The blue splash is basically free. And it's like a free way to deal with Planeswalkers. It's a free way to get an extra flyer in play, and it's all wrapped up in a card that can also just draw a card every turn if I keep linking it with Teleportation Circle.
Yeah, Teleportation Circle might be the card that brings all the synergies together in this deck, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the key. Is Teleportation Circle is really good. It's insane with Esika's Chariot. It's not quite as good with Verdurous Gearhulk or Sky Sovereign flagship, but it is very good with them. I also really like it with Ingenious Smith. It can turn Ingenious Smith into like a card drawing engine if you're drawing to your like removal spell or unlicensed hearse. It also blinks artifacts every turn, so Smith always grows.
Okay.
So Smith is either like card advantage engine or like beatdown card, and it can like serve whatever role you need it to do in the deck. Like you can just bounce Prophetic Prism every turn, and your Smith just grows every turn. Or if you don't have the Prophetic Prism, you just bounce the Smith until you draw the Prophetic Prism, and then you bounce the Prism every turn.
Yeah. Prisms. I can't believe you just wanted to play Prism. This is like trying to justify Prism with every stretch of your body.
Prism was insane. Like I said, I was doing badly. So I added like one Prism because I kept flooding, and then I was like, oh, okay, when I drew that was pretty good. I guess I could play like 2. I was like, man, every time I'm playing this Prism, it's just insane. Like this card's just crazy. And then I played the full 4, and I went 4-1. I could have very easily 5-0, which would have been pretty wild considering how I think misbuilt the list is, especially with some bad sideboard cards.
The Prisms just kept on coming, and they kept being good.
Yeah.
Nothing to do against them.
Like, if you just have Prism plus Circle in play, even against like blue-white, it's really hard for them to beat that. It's like a planeswalker they can't easily interact with.
Okay. I love it.
So yeah, Channeler, I think just, again, a value card that keeps coming back. All the modes are relevant. Being able to bounce planeswalkers is more relevant in this deck than other decks because we don't have that many attackers. Being able to make a flyer in a deck that has Verdur's Gearhulks to buff the flyer. And then just, again, being a random value card if all else fails, and Teleportation Circle just needs to draw us cards.
Yeah, a lot of the time, just the value piece is what you need. Just that sometimes the draw card, even if it's like the less tempo method, once you have a lot of mana, you don't even care about that.
Exactly. All right, so that's Pioneer. We've talked enough about Pioneer. Tell me a little bit about Modern.
So, about Modern, I think the first list everybody was excited about, I'm sure you have seen it around, is Spike's Soul Herder list.
Yes.
So, for Soul Herder, as soon as it was spoiled, Spike was like, okay, I don't know what I'm taking out. Eventually, he did end up carrying Deputy of Detention, and I think one of the... and another removal creature, whose name I can't remember right now. It was not a particularly known one. And just started for Aether Channeler immediately. And as soon as the card got spoiled, I remember every single game I played against that deck with a control deck, I won the same way. Playing a Planeswalker, and it just stood there and won me the game, right? Because when your deck is playing 7 walls, 4 Quartles, and your biggest creature is a Solitude, you are never killing a Planeswalker efficiently.
Right.
And Aether Channeler, as you said exactly during Pioneer, being able to just bounce a Planeswalker and tempo your opponent is huge. Like just taking out their main win con and just then starting drawing cards until they redevelop, and you can blink it again with the Soul Herder is insane.
Yeah, so like to your point, the typical play pattern is you'd play like a Teferi and plus it so that Icefang Quaddle can't kill it. But if you just bounce it with Channeler, then Teferi didn't do anything. And then now what are you going to do? Play Teferi into that again and plus it? Like, if they play a Soul Herder after that, they again get to bounce your Teferi. Your Teferi doesn't do anything. It doesn't want to blink these creatures. They just draw.
Exactly, and it should be a pretty common occurrence, right? Like, you just go turn 3 Tef, they go turn 3 Channeler, and you can't go turn 4 Tef unless you have a 1-mana removal, because they're just going to go Soul Herder, blink your Tef again, and hold up Ephemerate, and you're just going to cry.
Yeah. So... have you been impressed by this? I know he's tried, Aspiring Spike has played a little bit. Have you played anything like this or played against it, decks like this in the queues?
I have only played one league with Aether Channeler with this deck, and I went 3-2. I played super poorly one of the games because I was focusing on other stuff. But Aether Channeler felt amazing.
Oh, so it felt like an upgrade. You didn't miss Deputy Detention or the 7th wall.
No, not at all. I think this is so much better.
And again, this is a card with Collected Company, so you want a card that's always relevant. Sometimes you hit your Deputy Detention with a Collected Company and there's nothing to hit. This always does something, right? It makes a 1/1 or draws a card.
Exactly, and I think that's huge. Just being able to have different methods for your card. Like, this is sort of what I was expecting from the black one, which makes a best token, draws you a card that loses to 1 life for exiles opponent graveyard. But the thing is, exiling opponent graveyard, while more powerful in certain scenarios, it's not nearly quite as versatile as draw a card. Sorry, as bounce something.
Right.
You can always bounce something if you're behind, while the other one, while behind, just sucks.
Yeah. Agree. All right, so that's the starting point, the Collected Company shell. That makes sense. Are there any other places you want to try it out?
We talked a little bit about Bob 49's Azorius Emeria decklist that he tends to get pretty good results with. So the decklist tends to be like pretty straight up. I think Bob is insane in used to play 4 Sun Titans. I think 2 or 3 is more reasonable, and he finally went down a bit with Serra Paragons. So 4 Traveling Inspector, 4 Charming Prince, 4 Wall of Omens, 4 Ranger Captain of Ilios, 4 Skyclave Apparition, 4 Solitude, 4 March, 3 Sun Titans, 4 Teferi, 4 Verdict, and 4 Ephemerates. I think Aether Channeler deserves a few spots in this deck list.
Yeah, so the deck is already splashing blue, to your point, to play the Teferis and Supreme Verdict. So we're not asking anything of the mana base it wasn't already prepared to do.
Exactly. Card works amazingly well with Ephemerate, works pretty well with Sun Titan / Serra Paragon.
Yeah, I'm surprised this list doesn't also have 1 Flicker Wisp. That card is so awesome with Sun Titan.
We used to play a lot of Flicker Wisp. I remember once I started playing the decklist, I was like, doesn't Flicker Wisp suck? And he was like, no, best card in the deck. And eventually it just got cut because...
Is it just Red and 6 kills it, or what's the story?
Red and 6 kills it, and a lot of the time, you're too far behind on tempo while playing a Flicker Wisp, right? Like, the best scenario with a Flicker Wisp, I think the best matchup for Flicker Wisp is Amulet Titan. You haven't lived until you go something like turn 2 Spreading Seas your land. So, opponent plays a land on turn 1, like a forest. You go turn 2 Spreading Seas, they go turn 2 Karu, bounce my land. You go turn 3 Flicker Wisp your Karu. And you just, and they have to, and it returns bounce itself to the hand, and opponent is like empty landed. So you have a 3 mana 3/1 that did the double pillage.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like Flicker Wisp in your graveyard, Sun Titan getting back Flicker Wisp immediately flickering Sun Titan, you get another thing back is just so sweet.
It's amazing, but you can do that with Charming Prince.
Yeah, fair enough.
And if you're resolving Sun Titan, you're generally already winning. At least in most scenarios.
So yeah, what are we looking to cut in your mind? Are we looking to play like a couple Aether Channelers? Are we looking to play the full boat?
So I have never been in love with the full playset of Skyclave Apparition.
Yeah.
Nor the whole playset of Ranger Captain of Eos. So I think you already have 2 slots in there, like 3/3 instead of 4/4. Also, I don't love Charming Prince as a full playset.
Right.
I do like the addition of the 1 Burrenton Forge Tender if you're playing 4 Ranger Captain of Eos as a good card to get against Mono Red.
And there's a Giant Killer to tutor up as well.
Yeah. Also, the super spicy and beautiful land Idyllic Ranch wins you a surprising amount of games because your opponent absolutely never plays around it.
No, they cannot.
No one has ever played around Idyllic Ranch. Like, I cannot tell you the number of times my opponent has gone like, okay, bolt your Ranger Captain of Eos and you just fetch, get a 4/4, and they're like, wait, what? How? How did this happen to us? Where did we go wrong?
Yeah, so Sun Titan being able to buy back a way to get rid of expensive permanents is super cool, right? Like, getting back Skyclave Apparition is fine, but it doesn't stop Titan, for instance, that came down.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, bouncing Skyclave Apparition is going to lead to your opponent having a lot of tokens you're going to struggle with. For example, like if you ephemerate your Skyclave Apparition to deal with 2 stuff on your opponent's end step, you're going to get crushed, while just bouncing 2 stuff with your Aether Channeler, like end step and upkeep, it's just a huge tempo play.
Well, and Channeler and Skyclave Apparition kind of work together, right? If you don't have 4 of each, but maybe you have 3 of each, the Channeler can blink the token that Apparition left behind if it needs to. If it doesn't need to, then it can draw a card, etc., etc.
There's also a really minor upside, but it's worth considering, that Aether Channeler can bounce your own stuff in the mid to late game. And that's bound to happen semi-consistently.
Yeah, I mean, you know, bouncing your ambitious farmhand to get another planes.
Yeah, a lot of time you're about to get a land, or you have the super small loop of 6 mana draw card with Teferi and Aether Channeler. Which you're surprised how many games in your Emeria deck go to 6 lands.
Right.
I know it sounds like a joke, but you would be surprised how many games with this deck I have won by hard casting, and Bob's not playing it, the land from Zendikar, the 7 mana one, the one that bolts your face.
Oh, that makes 2 4/4 angels.
Exactly, you have no many games I have won via Ancients. So it's not an impossibility at all. And yeah, I think this deck deserves some of them. If not main deck, then maybe I'm thinking the main deck just as a way to bounce your opponent's stuff, keep the tempo when needed. Pretty amazing when you start getting them back with the media and huge ephemerate synergy. You will see in that deck you have 0 cards besides Wall of Omen that draw a card with ephemerate.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising. I mean, Ranger Captain sort of draws a card.
I mean, it's 3 mana to draw you a card. You get a Thraben plus a clue, but it's gonna take you a while to draw a card.
Right.
A lot of the time you need your Solitude now.
Right.
Like, I gotta dig for it, or I need my Teferi, or I need my Cyborg cards, and I can't afford to dawdle around with my Ranger Captain.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, like you say, if you cut a Skyclave Apparition, you cut a Charming Prince, you cut a Ranger Captain, maybe just play 3 of them or something like that.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, I mean, I think we're just super excited to try it. It's about finding the right place for it, right? This isn't a card that by itself, when it resolves the game, like wins the game. It just always is going to be good, right, in every situation. It's never going to be broken. It's a super fair card. So, of course, and it accumulates a lot of value over time. So those are the things that Mort and I like. And we're very excited to play really long games where Chandler enters play a bunch of different times, does a bunch of different things.
Exactly.
Also, I will say, in Pioneer specifically, Fable is everywhere, and so like just coming into play, taking out the token, you're just straight up even with Fable, and if you ever get to bounce it again, it just feels amazing, right? So that's already just great.
The Aether Channeler was also tested in enigmatic builds, but it suffered from exactly what Dan discussed as not best in class, because you never got it over the alternatives that were just straight up more powerful, right?
Yeah, we're kind of entering the end of our Aether Channeler thing here, so this is a good, perfect segue into our Leyline binding discussion.
Oh, 100%.
I played it as a one-of in my Leyline binding list. So our card last week was Leyline binding. Dan and Mord had a bunch of cool ideas. You guys also really liked it with the black domain spell Prophecy, Dark Prophecy? Shadow Prophecy. So I wanted to try it in like a super combo build. So I played 4 Search of the... What the hell is this card called?
What card?
4 In Search of Greatness.
Oh,
with...
How did you forget about the most debated crappy card I have ever seen?
It's a terrible card. So I played a Search for Greatness plus Enigmatic Incarnation. And so the thought is, if you get a binding in play and you have either of those cards, then if Titan's in your hand, you can play it for free. If Titan's in your deck, you can sack your binding and go get it. So my 1-drops were 4 Portable Hole. It's a card that you can play for free the turn after you play a turn 2 In Search of Greatness. You can play it for free from your hand, which is cool. Even though it's not an enchantment. This deck is not all in on enchantments. My 2-drops were Wolf Willow Haven, Search for Greatness, Nylea's Presence, a couple of Omen of the Seas.
Good old Omen. I just love the Omen.
My 3-drops were 2 Moonblessed Clerics to tutor for my various enchantments, 1 Aether Channeler, 1 Knight of Autumn, the clone MDFC, and then I played 4 Enigmatic Incarnation, 1 Urian, 4 Titan, 4 Binding.
And tell us a bit about it. Tell us about the great Search for Greatness you had.
Yeah, so it started out awesome. I was 3-0, 6-0. I had not lost a game. I had dominated like what I consider all to be like tier 1 or 2-ish decks. I played Abzan Greasefang. I played Mono Black Aggro, and I played Blue Red Phoenix by Gul Dukat, who is one of the better Blue Red Phoenix players in the format. And I just 2-0 them very easily. Got some screenshots here. And the thing that struck me was like how reasonable binding was. Like I'd considered in various Search for Greatness decks in the past the 4-mana flash version of this that cycles.
Lake Claim? No, what? No. Cast Out?
No, it's not Cast Out. Or is it?
Is it? We can do this, come on. It's not that hard.
Yeah, it is Cast Out.
Haha! I knew it. My Enchantress and my Resurrection Belief studies work for something.
So the thing that's relevant here is instant speed is really, really good with Search for Greatness, because Search for Greatness is a trigger that goes on the stack. So if you have it in your hand and you have the Titan in your hand, you don't need to do it that turn. You can flash it in during your upkeep with the trigger of the Search for Greatness on the stack, and then you say yes and play your Titan for free.
Okay.
And that came up a bunch of times. So you can, like, let's just say you turn 2 Search for Greatness, turn 3, like, play a tap land, play Nylea's Presence, and you draw your Titan and you have a Binding in hand. Your next upkeep, you just flash in Binding for 1 and play Titan for free. And that turn is not just great because you got a free Titan, you also played a 1-mana removal spell that got rid of their best permanent, got rid of their Liliana or their Fable or whatever. It's incredible how powerful that turn is. There's nothing that compares with it. That's the best turn 4 in the format by far. It's way better than Transmogrify, for instance, because you also got a free removal spell functionally.
Yeah.
And you still have 3 mana left that turn if you want to do something else. And then the cool thing is once you have that in play, you just have it Search for Greatness like cycling through the top of your deck, right? You're scrying 1. Like, that's not worth it just by itself, but it is worth it as if you've already like bought a bunch of time by playing a 7/7 and a 4/4 and gaining 5 life or whatever. So anyway, started out great against them. Then I played Mono Red Goblins, a really cool list, and just didn't quite get the mana to line up and didn't quite combo in time. They played they did play Squee, who got me.
Squee!
They played the Rabble Master, and I had to sack Binding to get my Titan, but that meant that they got to attack with Rabble Master and like 6 goblins, and they all had trample from the 1/1 goblin that, like, when you attack with 3 or more creatures, gives everything trample and first strike or whatever. So maybe I just needed a few better sideboard cards there. I'm not sure what the plan ought to have been. And then lost to Red Black Sacrifice because I mulled to 5 in both of my 2 losses. So it was actually really surprisingly easy to do the thing.
Okay.
I misbuilt the deck. There wasn't enough white mana sources. I should not have had Aether Channeler as a tutor target. I actually don't think I needed the Urian. There's not actually that many things to like blink for value in the list. I think I should just maybe go all in on Omen of the Seas.
Okay.
Like, they just help me find the pieces. But yeah, like, basically once you get your first Titan, then Enigmatic Incarnation sacks a 2-drop to find the clone for your Titan, and the game is over. Like, one Titan doesn't win, but the second Titan always does.
Yeah, second Titan is a lot.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of enchantments that you get to blow up too. Like, you know, you get to blow up random artifacts if you don't need the other token, and it's even like weirdly resistant to Liliana because Liliana just kills the 4/4, which doesn't do that much anyway. So yeah, just the list felt really good. I'm going to try it again once I update the mana, tweak out the sideboard, but the fact that I, felt like I was in basically every game, it lines up very well against aggro, and it's actually surprising how often it comes together. Maybe I was just fortunate in the first league, and I'll be very frustrated in the future, but...
I can already see myself hearing you just curse this deck into oblivion in like the next week. Like, everything that went well in the leagues proceeds to go completely wrong, and you just rake into like, okay, In Search for Greatness is the worst card I have seen in years. Like, complete opposite rant.
Yeah, it's just... The other problem that I think I had was I was playing all these cards that wanted to draw, so I'd always have something for Search for Greatness. But if you don't need to do that, if the thing that's triggering it is instead of a draw spell, just a cheap removal spell, that's already good. And this card, if you get to cast it for 3 mana even, is still fine, right? Like, you play Search for Greatness, you play a 3rd land, and then you just cast it on your, whatever, on their attack. You get their squee, let's say. Then next turn, you just play a Titan for free. Like, you didn't have to do anything crazy. You didn't play any special cards. You just played a slightly undercosted cast out, and then you played a Titan for free. And you didn't do anything special. And you got 1 free scry to try to find the Titan. So... You do have to play a slightly worse mana base, because I played 3 Triomes and then 8 Shocks, and I actually think I should be playing an extra Shock. I should be playing an Azorius land, even though everything else makes green, just so you can have a Plains in play more often, more types for your binding, just to be a slightly better card when you don't have the Triome and when you don't have the Nylea's Blessing.
Okay.
So you have to take some damage there, but that's the iron price. You have to be willing to pay it.
So there's something to consideration here, which is you say that maybe you should go to 60 cards. And it's worth mentioning that the Enigmatic Incarnation deck list at 5/0, even if I completely disagree with it, I'm just being impartial at mentioning this as much as it hurts, was actually a 60 card deck.
It was? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the one that got the 5/0 the one that you saw the 4/7 drops in was actually a 60-card deck list. Your brain just didn't recognize that.
I just assumed Urian was there because everyone's been kind of playing the same.
Exactly. I had the same issue the first time. Like, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this is a Urian deck list. And I was like, wait, how many lands? And when I saw 23, I was like, wait a minute, brain. Wait a minute. And yeah, it was exactly as I saw. It was a 60-card deck list because I assumed they were basing themselves on the power level of Binding plus Enigmatic with certain consistency.
I guess I should have known because Fires is the card that you kind of add when you go up to the 60 cards. And Fires is so good with Urian, of course.
Yeah, and the other 60-card version that didn't 5-0 was exactly... So the first version that 5-0 was 60 cards with Fire, and the second one was the guy saying, look, if you're not going to play Urian, don't play Fires. And they just didn't play Fires. They had 4 Enigmatic and Omnath as extra 4 drops.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm certainly not an Enigmatic Incarnation player, but like being all in on the combo felt way better to me than trying to play fair without Urian.
Yeah, it's really hard.
I like the idea, though, of the Dryad of the Elysian Grove as another presence, and it's actually tutorable. That actually really intrigues me.
Yeah, that was a super interesting take that I actually thought was pretty good, because now you have the additional upside. We have, besides the fixing, that you're also getting the domain value. Sadly, the other day I was checking, there's really few cards with domain in Magic's history. I really expected it to be a more spread out mechanic.
Yeah, well, normally the fixing in a specific format is not the actual types. Like, first of all, of course, Triomes, whether you like them or not, are a very recent quote-unquote innovation. So, if the fixing is like pain lands and check lands or whatever, then domain sucks to have as a mechanic because you put this exciting mechanic on all these cards and then you can't play them.
So, for example, if you look like in Scryfall at the text domain, and then you look like modern legality, you only have, I think it's 40 cards? 37 cards.
I did a search myself, yeah.
It's like a non-existing number. I was surprised by how low it was. It actually was super sad. Also, I learned that Voices from the Void exists.
Yeah.
5 mana, opponent discards 5. Spiciest little crappy card I would never play I have ever seen. So bad.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know yet. There's some ideas here. I'm not in love that much with Urian and these shells without having more stuff to blink. Like, there's just not that much stuff to actually get in your main deck, and you only have an Enigmatic Incarnation sacrifice. I never loved drawing Urian, so especially I think in my more combo focused list, I need to be all in on the combo. So I love a Deputy Detention. I love maybe going up to 4 Omen of the Seas. Maybe moving away from Wolfwillow Haven. It did not do very much for me. I don't know if I need that to accelerate if I'm not going to ever hardcast Urian.
And stream down to 60.
Well, I'm already at 60. I wasn't playing Urian.
Okay. And just stream down in the combo.
Because I want to do the thing. We're brewing. I wanted the thing to happen as much as possible. It happened all the time. Even in games I lost, so.
So I also think, like, in Modern you can just put Urian on anything. Because you have enough powerful cards. Like, let's say I'm insane and I want to play Urian Murktide. Okay, I just go up to 27 lands. That's 7 spots. I only need 13 more cards. I have 2 Charm, 1 Bolt, 1 Spell Pierce, 1 Darcy, 2 Ledger Shredder, 1 Brazen Borrower, 1 Murktide, and that's 10 spots already, right? You have so much power level.
A Tolarian Serpent.
And 2 Tolarian Serpents if I'm insane.
Yeah.
Or actually just like good cards. I could add 1 Chase in the main deck and 3 and Blood Moons even, because I can access 2 more islands because I'm playing Urian.
Right.
But what I mean is, the modern power level is so huge, you can feature Urian in whatever the hell you want, and you're gonna have enough playsets to sign up for that, right? Like, Rhino's going full on Urian, and the only thing to link is Solitude, and Omnath, and Fury.
Right.
While in Pioneer, even while playing 60, sometimes you have to fill your deck with bad cards to get to the maximum account.
Right.
And I think that's why Urian becomes a lot less powerful unless you are super exploiting it. Like, the normal enigmatic versions, like, super go off with Urian. Like, Urian is a wincon of its own, right? Like, you blink the 2 mana edicts, the omens, like, Urian tends to be close to a 5/1 or 6/1 just by being itself. So unless you're getting that sort of raw power level out of it, in Pioneer specifically, 60 might be better in a lot of spots.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, so that was my experience. I really like the deck. I'm going to fix the mana. I'm going to add some white sources. I'm going to add an extra planes, an extra shock, just so I can feel alive. And I'm probably going to run it again. How did you find Leyline Binding in Modern?
So I have done a lot of testing with a lot of different builds. Sadly, mostly was with different Esper builds that I got absolutely crashed on. Like, the card was insane, the builds I was playing it weren't as much. But that's because I was also trying to go off with Shadow Prophecy in different setups. Right now, my best win rate has been an 8-2 with a... So, Currywurm Azorius is the decklist of Azorius control with Yorion, Spreading Seas, Wall of Omens, and Hiddens to play Wandering Emperor, Restoration Angel.
Yes, he's the Restoration Angel guru.
That's what makes the Currywurm special, right? Turn 3, Vendilion Clique, turn 4, Restoration Angel.
Yep.
So I said, what if we drop the Currywurm special and make it good? Because I have no idea how Currywurm wins consistently with that. Also, Currywurm has gone insane and is playing Chukwasali Ambusher.
I saw that. That's insane.
Yeah.
With the Bant Triome.
There was this video of Spike where he was tilting because his opponent top deck, with Currywurm top deck, double Supreme Verdict, double Solitude. And the turn Spike is about to attack with Lethal for Elves. Currywurm has 3 cards in hand. And goes double Causali Ambusher on like turn 6. It just destroys him. Like, totally destroys Spike. It's a beautiful clip.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's just what Currywurm does to people.
So you're not going to play Causali Ambusher in your domain list?
So maybe I am on the sideboard, but that's not what I'm looking for. So I just grabbed the deck list, took out the Vendilion Cliques, the Causali Ambushers, the Resto Angels, and was like, okay, I'm going to still play Callous of the Void. I'm still gonna play most of the good stuff. I'm just gonna... Currywurm tends to play 4 Ending and no Marches. And I was like, I'm gonna play 4 Ending, take out the Fire and Ice, and play 4 Leyline Binding.
Okay.
So Leyline Bindings have been insane at dealing with most stuff. The combination of Prismatic Ending and Leyline Binding March allowing you to play Callous of the Void in the main deck is just insane. A lot of the time, Callous of the Void is at least a bit annoying with Prismatic Ending because you have to pay it for 2 a lot of the times you don't want to. But with Leyline Binding, you just still pay 1. You just don't even care about your Callous of the Void ever.
Interesting.
And that has been super relevant. Besides that, in this deck list I have taken out Omen of the Seas and added Shadow Prophecy, and I'm just testing the card and it has worked pretty well so far. Because it's mostly free once you have already added the domain cards for Leyline Binding, right? And I think it's better than stuff like Memory Deluge and such, but that's just personal testing right now.
So yeah, you and Dan were kind of making the point, if you're going to go all the way to to Leyline Binding, why not also do the Prophecy thing, and you can combine that with a Reanimator package, you can combine it with other stuff. It seems like basically nobody has done that second step, or the people who haven't been the ones 5-0ing and doing well in the challenges.
I have been getting crushed.
The people who have been doing better have just been doing the binding thing. So do you think that's a function of the Prophecy as a card, or adding, maybe mixing up your plans and not just being a efficient removal spell, you're also asking your deck to be a little more proactive, or what do you think?
I think just adding the binding is so free, it requires no deck changes. Like, you just take out worse removal or worse fillers and just go up to 4 binding and it's bound to work.
And you play like 1 more Triome.
4 color, some decklists of 4 color at 5-0 didn't even add a Triumph. They are still exactly the same mana base and are just playing binding as an amazing 2-mana removal.
Yeah, like a super terminate.
Exactly. And that has worked enough to 5-0. So I think that adding Shadow Prophecy package and such requires a much bigger change in layout of the deck, right? Like in how it works. So I'm not still sure just adding binding is what you should do. I'm 100% sure you should add binding. Like, going halfway is 100% better than not going anywhere. I'm just 100% certain of that. Binding should be in your deck if you can afford to play binding.
Okay. But do you need to go all the way to Prophecy? Unclear at this point.
I'm not sure yet. I'm learning that as I speak. For the first time, I have found a decklist I actually think it's good. I have tried a lot of them and I have struggled to find my correct numbers. This Currywurm version, where I'm just playing 4 Wall of Omens, 4 Spreading Seas, 4 counters, 4 Archmage Charm, 4 Teferi, 4 Shadow Prophecy, Solitude, Subtlety, Leyline Binding, Ending March, is so far the best one I have found. the fact that Wall of Omens allows you to just ignore certain creatures. Like against goblins, Wall of Omens make it so a lot of like the minor creatures you can just ignore, and you focus your removal on important stuff. So it has been pretty good. So far, so good. Shadow Prophecy, the times that I have cast it, I have loved it, because it gives you additional 2-for-1s alongside Archmage's Charm, with a lot of the time you don't want to counter with it, because it's the only 2-for-1 you have in your deck. Everything else is like a straight up 1-for-1. So it has felt pretty good, because you played 2 Memory Deluge, and I think this is a huge upgrade.
Okay.
Also allows you to splash Kaya's Guile in the sideboard, and Kaya's Guile is an amazing card for a lot of matchups.
Right, yeah. So, do you think you need to have lots of synergy with the graveyard for Dark Prophecy to be good? No. Have you been playing like Reanimator style lists with that as well?
Not. I have played a few, and the legs. So I was super unlucky. There was games I literally had 4 persistent hand, 0 Archons in the graveyard, or the other way around, and it was like the odds of this make absolutely no freaking sense.
Right.
And I still managed to get like a 3-2 and a 2-3 while literally never playing the game. So there might be something to a 60 card deck with 4 Shadow Prophecy and just trying to build your Archons and your Burial Rites. I think there's a lot of consistency to that plan that I think is worth looking into. But just by someone that enjoys Reanimator more than I do.
Okay. So we're locked in that Leyline Binding is an awesome piece of removal. In Pioneer, it actually involves building your whole deck around it.
Yeah.
Whether that's right to do an Enigmatic Incarnation or not, how many 7-drops to play, should you play your Iron or not, that's unknown. But in Modern, it seems like a borderline staple removal spell. Is it the best removal spell? It's certainly in the conversation, and that says something in a format as powerful as Modern.
Yeah, the fact it is elbow to elbow with Prismatic Ending and Unholy Heat is such insane, because I have never seen a permanent base removal even make slightly ripples because of all the downsides we talked about previously. But if even with all those downsides it's so efficient, it's shocking.
Yeah. All right, so it's up to us to Aether Channeler away the Leyline Bindings this week to free our Planeswalkers or whatever.
You have to be extremely careful to binding at the Teferi, because your opponent can just Aether Channeler, get at the Teferi, and then do whatever they want. They just go to free Teferi.
Well, that's why I like the mono white quote unquote list that you were talking about adding Channeler to, because it seems like a very natural card, especially if binding's gonna be that people try to get rid of Teferi.
Yeah.
It's like you get rid of the binding, put it back in their hand, then Teferi puts Aether Channeler back in your hand, so when they binding on their turn again,
and they can never get rid of it.
Yeah.
And you just keep drawing cards.
Right.
Also, super interesting thing, Channeler is amazing if you're playing Ephemerate against the creativity decks, because none of the other cards in that deck, like Skyclave or such, get rid of like the treasure tokens.
Oh, the treasure tokens, yeah. And it's permanent, so if you play it right away, like on turn 3, you just get rid of their first dwarf or their first treasure, and then if you blink it later.
Because it happens a lot that you really struggle to get rid of the treasures or clues that are made by hard evidence. Because it's not easy to interact with that.
Right, and you can't main deck Night of Autumn or whatever. But this is a main deckable card that can do that.
Exactly. So super interesting, especially with Ephemerate as a way to get rid of those super cleanly.
All right, so the world for people like us who like playing super long games where you slowly accumulate value is just looking better and better.
I have sent a lot of... So, in all of these Shadow Prophecy binding decks, a lot of the games I have won due to being a Yorion deck, because I have gone below 20 cards on my library. And I send those screenshots to my friends and they're like, I hate these sort of games. And I'm like, I love this.
Yeah.
Like the Yorion Mirror of Control, where both players have less than 20 cards in the deck. Oh yes, give me, baby. Give me all of them.
It's just one of those where I tell Katie, like, all right, I'll be up to bed, when this league is over. And then it's just like the first game, we're both under like 5 minutes on the clock. It's like, oh God, this is going to be a super long league. And then by the time I go to bed, it's like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, you should probably don't mind crazy ass.
I think that the culmination of my love for long games is whenever I'm playing decks like 4-color control or such, and I just let Red and 6 Emblem a lot of the time, because I would rather have my removal for a Tarmogoyf and my opponent is on top deck mode, and I'm like, I don't care about your best card. Like, what I have in the graveyard is a Thoughtseize, and drawing once per turn their best card is not enough to beat my 3 bad cards per turn. Or the worst case scenario, letting Helio, like me having only one Solitude in hand, Helio the opponent going off infinite life, and me like going, okay, I'm gonna mill you out. But I'm not gonna lie to Ballista.
Right.
And everybody was like, please kill the Ballista, please end the game now. Please kill the Spike Fear, he's not gonna top like Ballista. And I'm like, I don't know. He can go infinite. This is not my issue.
All right, so we will leave it there. I guess the takeaway is for sure play Leyline Binding in Modern, and then hopefully let's find some sweet shells for Aether Channeler.
I hope so as well. And if you're playing Ghostly Ambusher, you are either a genius or a madman, but never a sane person.
No. Always nowhere in between.
Nowhere in between. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much, David, for being with me today. Had a lot of fun.
All right, take care, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Deck lists for this episode can be found at our homepage, faithlessbrewing.com. And tune in on Friday for the conclusion of our monthly project and the nominees for next month's card. Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. Join the Faithless family and help support the show at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing for Discord access, bonus content, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
They're so small.
They're like less than 10 days old.
I know.
But they can cry. Okay, now we are in. I just needed to get some of that audio for the podcast.